We have breaking news as the Toronto Maple Leafs made a bit of a surprising signing as they have brought back Timothy Liljegren on a very interesting deal. So we're going to break that down as well as some other moves the Leafs have made. They have extended qualifying offers to a lot of their players, aside from a couple guys that got left out. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the large percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're producing daily Leafs content. We just dropped a video just a little bit ago about Max Domi. And the Leafs were not done there, Darius. This one is surprising. I am a little bit shocked that they actually extended this player because I thought they were going to go in a different direction. That's what reports seem to indicate. But that is not the case. And let's just break it all down. So Timothy Liljegren, literally as of like 10 minutes ago, as the time of recording, just signed for 2 years at $3 million. There's a lot of different things we're going to go over today. But Darius, let's just get started with your opinion. So they brought back Liljegren, 2 years, $3 million. Interesting.
Pretty interesting. My first reaction, honestly, was okay, they're just signing him so that maybe they could trade him, or maybe they're going to make a trade because it just doesn't really work with what they have left in terms of salary cap. I think Cap Friendly right now, after the signing, has them at about 12 million projected cap space right now. So based on what they still need, goaltender, maybe another defenseman, is Tyler Bertuzzi coming back? It doesn't really make sense, right, in that way. But if I'm trying to be optimistic about it, if you look at the player himself, he regressed a lot last year after that high ankle sprain early in the season. So I wonder with a full off season and recovering from that, if he comes back next year and he does show us something, right? Because I've been pretty low on him this season, thinking, okay, maybe this is what he's capped out as, and they have to move on from him, right? And honestly, I think he's still a really good player. There might still be something there, but I do wonder sometimes if he has capped out. So it's a pretty interesting deal. I wonder if they are going to trade him, if they just re-signed him, because it would be more appealing to other teams to have the player sign instead of having to deal with arbitration and all that other stuff. So I wonder if there is still a move to be had here, but the Leafs did officially announce it on their Twitter. So it's done. 3 million, 2 years, pretty interesting. And I do wonder if they end up just keeping him, because I wonder if they think they still have something in this player, because there is something to be said about the injury he had, right? Marner wasn't the same after that injury as well. So interesting stuff. I wonder if they think, he might have something next year.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against it. I'm not a huge fan because it might take us out of the race for a couple of the other guys, given who is left and what the cap space is looking like. This from James Merrill. This makes a lot of sense. Really didn't seem like it was going to get done, but they found a way, which again, very surprising. Not necessarily like the contract amount isn't that much, but just the fact that I almost had it in my head that Liljegren was either going to get traded, and it's still possible that he does get moved at some point in this contract, but not right now. It doesn't look like. And I want to get your thoughts on this. And if you're watching this video right now, obviously you're watching it, but leave it in the comments what your thoughts are on this specific point. Darius, I want to get your thoughts on this because I have my own kind of opinion. 3 mil a year for a guy who gets scratched every playoffs. Now, that again, the injury I think played a big part of that. I also don't think he was particularly awful in the playoffs. I don't think the Leafs played particularly worse when he was in the lineup, even though he did end up getting scratched. I think there were other guys that contributed to the blue line kind of falling apart against the Bruins. Do you have a thought on that particular point that they're paying guys $3 million who aren't going to play in the playoffs?
For whatever reason, I still think that there's something there with this player, like deep down. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I get too attached to certain players or not, but I think that he might be able to show something still. And I wonder what healing from that injury will do for this player. But facts don't care about your feelings as well. This is a player that was scratched in the playoffs 2 years in a row in favor of Justin Hall, which seems ridiculous at this point in time, right? And then he got into the lineup last playoffs, and you could see the Bruins targeting this player, and it might be because of his injury or whatever it is, right? Obviously lingering from that, but they were targeting him. It's a fact. Like, they were roughing him up, they were dumping the pucks in his corner, and if you're a weak link like that on the Leafs, that's not a good thing. So I don't know. It's interesting in that way. I tend to believe that there might still be, and the Leafs may see something still left in this player. But it's a little bit much money, I think, based on what we know the Leafs still want to accomplish in the next day. So it's interesting. And I don't think they're done by any means. They could make a trade. I'm not saying they could trade him. They could trade somebody else, right? Free up a little bit of salary cap, but it's a little puzzling in that way.
Very. I agree. A bit puzzling. A lot of money. No, it's not a lot of money, but given the track record and the fact that he hasn't played in the
That's what it
playoffs,
is.
it is a lot of money. You can see here, Liljegren agrees to the 2 year extension with Toronto at $3 million per. The Leafs are still in on Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Zadorov is likely too expensive, and that's kind of the gut punch. I thought there for a little bit they were going to be all in on him. And they also like Matt Roy, but sounds like he may be headed in a different direction. Hence, Liljegren provides some affordable insurance. So if Matt Raw's gone, Darius. Zadorov's probably gone. Alvar Eklund OEL is the guy that
Yes,
the Leafs are
tongue
going to
twister.
be trying to get. Oliver Ekman Larson is obviously a very, very interesting and intriguing one. The Leafs have been linked to him for a while there, but I don't know. Any final thoughts on this? I don't like it from the standpoint of it takes us out of guys like Zadorov and Matt. I'm not a huge fan of that, specifically Zadorov. That being said, when they probably sign Chris Tanev, it might take a bit of the sting out, but there's only so much cap space they have to work with. They still need to get a goalie as well.
Yeah, we'll have another video on this, but I wonder if Berube has something to do with this too. Like maybe OEL would be a good fit as a power play quarterback because Morgan Riley really hasn't been, and they probably want at least one defenseman there. Maybe Timothy Liljegren. Like when Riley was out too, Liljegren stepped in and he was pretty good on the power play for that really short snippet of game. So I wonder if Berube has some say in that. I wonder if Berube is even saying, let's bring back Liljegren, right? So they all work together. They all talk. There's a reason they made this contract extension and re-signed him. So we're just gonna have to see what happens over the next day. We're not sure if he's gonna get traded. It could be that, but there's other stuff to be done as well.
Yeah, and let's move on now to the point that other moves that were made that point to maybe the future of the Leafs being a little bit different. Before we do again, this is the Liljegren's projected war. Like he has a decent scorecard. Shout out to Jay Fresh. He's a second pairing two-way puck moving defenseman. He proved he could keep up in a bigger role, but hasn't done it in the playoffs. Let us know what your thoughts are on that. But Darius, let's go into here now. The Leafs have extended qualifying offers to the following players: Nick Robertson, Alex Steeves, Connor Dewar, Timothy Liljegren. Noah Gregor is gone, as well as Max Lajoie is also out. So this is not necessarily shocking news. We all knew Connor Dewar was coming back, Nick Robertson as well. I mean, trades could still be up in the air, but do you have any thoughts on this as they just kind of dumped the last bit of news, most likely until free agency opens up in about 20 hours or so?
Yeah, I'm not surprised with any of these at all, right? We kind of knew that they wanted Connor Dewar to come back as well. Like True Living after the season was talking about him as if he was still a part of the team, like 100% coming back. And if you can bring up Nick Robertson's stats too, this is a point I wanted to make about Nick Robertson and the fact that they gave him a qualifying offer. This guy this year scored 14 goals while being in the doghouse the entire season. So there's still something here with this player. And he played in the playoffs. I didn't think he looked that bad in the playoffs for majority of the season. I mean, between the blue lines in the neutral zone, this guy is pretty shocking and makes some weird decisions. And that same goes to be said about the defensive zone. But there is something to be said about Craig Berube coming in, and I wonder if he's going to be able to work with a player like this and the other coaching staff, the new coaching staff coming in to work with him defensively and kind of clean that stuff up. Because if he does that, this is a very effective player offensively, right? Like I mentioned, 14 goals, being in the doghouse, playing on the third line, and not playing every game, being scratched. So there's still definitely something in this player. I think I really like him. I've said in the past maybe they should trade him just because they're not going to use him, right? If you are going to use him, then that's great. Let's get to work, right? But I still think there's something in this player. So I'm glad that they got this done.
Yeah, a lot of different stuff is happening, a lot of juggling parts, and you mentioned it, Nick Robertson, goal scorer at least last year. Now that he's out of Keefe's doghouse in a different situation with Berube, maybe he'll be good. And maybe the same thing can be said for Timothy Liljegren, who, all things considered, 23 points in 55 games, not completely terrible. He's only 25 years old, so lots to go over there. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Tomorrow is a big day. Bearing any other moves, we'll probably see you in tomorrow's video, but tons of stuff keeps dropping, so make sure to stay tuned for that. You're going to want to hit the subscribe button, as we're going to have you covered tomorrow with lots and lots of content. See you soon.